My name's Erica Bryant. I am an attorney at Legal Aid of Southeastern Pennsylvania, and I am joined today by my friends and colleagues, Julia Simon Michelle, who runs the unemployment unit at Philadelphia Legal Assistance and has a wealth of expertise in this topic, as well as Lee Scarrato, also an attorney with me at Legal Aid of Southeastern Pennsylvania. He represents clients who need help getting unemployment compensation in Delaware County. So between the two of them, we are in great hands. Before I forget, I do also want to thank the Pennsylvania Legal Aid Network, who is supporting this by letting us use their Zoom and providing tremendous administrative support. So thank you, thank you, thank you to Plan. All right, with all of that out of the way, I know you are all here because you want to know more about unemployment compensation and how to move forward in the wake of the loss of Crozer to our community. We are here for you and happy to help. We do have a bit of a presentation to give, but if you have questions as we go, you'll notice that there is a Q&A option. So go ahead and put your questions in there, and then we'll make sure to run through them as much as possible before the end of the presentation. Okay, all right. Without any further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Julia, who will get us started with the presentation.
Great, thanks, Erica. So as Erica said, if you have questions during the presentation, drop them in the Q&A. If it's possible for someone to write up an answer, they'll do that during the presentation. Otherwise, we will try to run through as many as possible after the presentation. We have kind of shifted our focus in this presentation away from the initial application part of unemployment to kind of what comes next, continuing eligibility issues, and trying to address some concerns that LASP has heard from community members about their experience after Crozer's closing, trying to access unemployment benefits. So we may, I think, address some of the questions people already have during the presentation, but of course, if we don't, feel free to throw them in the Q&A. Same disclaimer for any of you who heard us last time, that we are here providing legal information that's up to date as of today, which is June 5th. So this is posted online. Know that this is only up to date as of June 5th, 2025. And I can't give specific legal advice in response to any of the questions, but we'll try to provide as much kind of generalized information in response to your questions that I think will be able to help as many people as possible. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started. So hopefully by now, everyone who wants to access unemployment has filed for benefits. The important reminder that once you filed your initial application, in order to actually get paid, you must then file weekly claims in the system. And there are multiple ways to do that. The first way, and the way that's kind of pushed by the agency and the way that kind of gives you, I think, the most access to the system is to file online through the portal. But you can file by phone. There is an automated telephone system that's available every day of the week for you to call and file on the phone. They'll ask you a series of questions. You'll hit certain buttons in response. And that works just as well. So if you can't access the portal for some reason or don't feel comfortable using that, you can certainly file your claims over the phone. If you miss a week, that's fine. The next week when you go and file, you'll be able to file for both weeks. If you miss 2 or more weeks, your claim may go inactive. If that happens, you will need to either go into the online system and file a reopen, or you can call unemployment and ask them to reopen your claim over the phone. If that happens and they do reopen it, you will have the opportunity to ask them to backdate the past 2 weeks. In essence, say, I missed these 2 weeks. I didn't mean to. Can we file for those 2 weeks now? But the easiest way to avoid this is just to file on a weekly basis. Most people file on Sunday, but you don't have to. You can file on Mondays. You can file on Tuesdays. You generally get paid 2 business days after you file. So keep that in mind in terms of when the money will hit your card or hit a bank account. So if you applied and you were not financially eligible, you need to look at two things. One, were all of your wages included? If all of your wages were included and you don't see anything missing, then it just might be that your wages don't fall in the right time period right now. And so while there's nothing that an appeal would most likely get you in that situation, if all the information on that determination is correct, you can apply again when the quarter switches. That will happen on July 6th. So you can file a whole new application then. Unemployment will pull different wages from the system, and you may be eligible at that point, especially if you had only been working more recently and don't have kind of as many wages, let's say from the kind of year ago to year and a half ago period. If there are wages missing from that determination, or there's something wrong about the wages or the credit weeks that are on there, then you should appeal and explain to unemployment what's wrong. And if you have any proof, right, of wages or earnings or anything like that, it'd be good to submit that along with your appeal. So once you're filed for unemployment, there are a series of what we call continuing eligibility requirements. The first of those we discussed last time, which is that you have to be able and available for work. This generally just means you have to be able to do some type of work for some period of time, right? So even if you're sick for 2 days of the week, you're still able and available if you were able to work for the remainder of the week, right? If you're in the hospital for the full week, you're not able and available for that week. But it changes week to week. So if you're not able and available for a given week, and then that changes, you answer differently, right? Each week that goes by. And if at any point you get disqualified under able and available, in addition to appealing that disqualification, you can reach out to unemployment and explain to them that you are eligible for the current week and they should release your benefits for the current week and any week going forward. A lot of times people make mistakes here and they get disqualified when really they are eligible and they have to go to unemployment and get that fixed. So always important to remember that, especially able and available, that is a week to week determination. So just because you are not eligible one week does not mean you won't be eligible the next. We talked last time about vacations and some things like that that folks may have had planned. And so I think we're probably close to past that for most folks, but obviously if something like that happens again, you can either choose to report that you're not able and available for the week, or you can skip filing that week. I don't know, depending on the way you file, whether it will give you the option in this system right now to skip. So if it doesn't, you would have to just say, again, that you were not able and available, but be very clear that it was for a limited period of time. So if you have filed for unemployment, then I hope you have also now registered online with CareerLink. This is a requirement for unemployment that within 30 days of your initial application, you must register online with CareerLink. You want to make sure that when you register, that when you look at your CareerLink profile, you see a little green checkbox on the right side of the screen. That would show that you are unemployment compensation compliant. There are some folks who, if you have a CareerLink registration from prior to your unemployment application, may have some issues getting the systems to communicate. So if you don't see that green check mark, it'd be good to contact unemployment and make sure they know that you are registered for CareerLink. If for some reason you get disqualified, and it says you're not eligible for, it says you did not register and you actually have registered, appeal that and you'll be able to, provide proof of the registration and get that fixed. Again, I mentioned this last time, this disqualification disappears once you register. So if you're not registered by the 35th day and you get disqualified and you register on the 36th day, then the next full week, you will be eligible for benefits, right? You haven't lost anything, you just have to file forward, right? But again, you can skip the mess by making sure that you're registered now. If you need help, you can go to any local CareerLink and you don't need an appointment or anything like that, and they can help you register for CareerLink right there on site. So in addition to registering for CareerLink, there is a work search requirement. We talked about this a little bit last time around. You have to complete weekly work searches. That generally involves kind of 2 job applications and participation in a work search activity. Sometimes it can mean participation in 2 work search activities, a job application later. It's a little flexible, but the key is you want to be actively looking for work and you want to maintain records of that. You do not have to provide those records to unemployment, but you do need to keep them because you could be audited sometime in the next couple of years about this. The only time you will be asked about your work search is when you file those weekly claims. You will simply be asked if you've completed your required work search. So if you have, you say yes. You don't have to do anything more than that. Where that question exists in the unemployment weekly claim certification, right? So either it is in your online UC portal or you're calling on the phone to file your weekly claim. So you have to be telling unemployment that. So regardless of what you're doing with CareerLink or what you're doing in the CareerLink system, you still have to file your weekly claims for unemployment and tell them that you are doing work search when they ask you. The systems are not connected, right? So one system does not know what the other one is doing. So if you're applying for work, it's entirely possible you get a job offer. If it's a job offer you want, great. Take that job offer. If it's not a job offer you want, you are not required by law to accept the first job that comes along, right? Unemployment is intended to support you while you look for a similar or better job, right? So that is a question about whether the job that you've been offered is suitable work. Okay. And there are certain things that unemployment will look at to evaluate whether it's suitable, right? Does it really match your experience and your training and your pay rate that you just had at your last job? Is it something that's within kind of commuting distance? And is it a reasonable commuting distance? It's, they're also going to be looking at kind of the general pay rate for your occupation. And then as time goes on, they might be looking at, well, how long have you been unemployed? Kind of what's the condition of the job market? And how likely are you to get a job in the occupation you're looking for? Now, they don't really know things like that to a certain extent. I mean, things like that. So that's something where if you turn down a job and you report that to unemployment, you explain, look, I feel fairly certain I've applied to like these other things and that's the job I'm really looking for and I'm highly qualified for it. And that's the job that I feel is suitable for me. Right. So they don't know these things about you. So if there is a situation like this and you report that you refused a job, unemployment will investigate and you'll have a chance to provide them with this information. If the job is suitable, there's still an opportunity if you do not want to take the job to explain to unemployment that maybe you have good cause for turning down the job, right? Even if it is a good fit, right? And that could have to do with the distance. It could do with your ability to find childcare or care for a family member during the exact time of that job. Maybe you can't actually physically do the job once you realize what the job entails, right? Or you would have needed some sort of accommodation for the job, but they're not willing to give it to you. Or that your transportation doesn't get you close enough to the job, right? So all of these things could be good cause, even then, for not accepting suitable work. If there's something like this and it could be fixable by the employer, we recommend communicating your concern to the employer after they make you the job offer. See, first of all, if there's a way they can fix it and make the job you actually want to accept. Second, it's just always good practice to show you are trying to make it work, right? So if you do that, keep records of those communications. We always recommend doing it by email. It's an easy thing to keep. So that if you need to provide proof at any point to unemployment, you can. Regardless of all of this, you have to report on your weekly claim if you did turn down a job offer. So even if it was a not suitable job offer or you had good cause, you still have to say yes to this question that you refused a job. And this is important because employers do report job hires and job offers to a database. And so unemployment will get this information eventually. And that's why it's important that you're honest on your weekly claims and that in a timely fashion, when you have all the information with you, you're able to explain to them exactly what happened. Okay. So again, this is not meant to punish you for not accepting a job or anything like that. But it is meant to encourage you to take jobs that are suitable for you and to give you an opportunity to explain if one is offered to you that is not suitable to you. If you do get a job offer and you accept that job offer, wonderful. You continue filing for benefits until that job starts. You do have to continue to search for work. I know it's kind of a weird thing, but that is just what the law requires, unfortunately. So you have to continue to do the job searches. You would continue filing for benefits up until your first week of work. So let's say that you're starting your job on Monday, right? You would not file the following Sunday for that week, right? So do not file for your first week of work. One of the biggest issues in unemployment is that people don't realize that they need to stop filing when they start working. They think they only have to stop filing when they start getting paid. But we often don't get paid for at least 2 weeks after we start working. And so then you have a 2-week period where you've reported that you're not working to unemployment, but you really have been working, and that is a problem. Okay, so make sure that you stop filing for benefits once you start a full-time job. If it's a part-time job, we'll talk about that more in a moment. But if it's a full-time job, make sure that you stop filing once you start it. You don't have to close out your claim or cancel your claim or anything like that. The claim, again, will naturally go inactive when you stop filing, right? So you don't take any other action. You don't have to inform unemployment of anything. Just simply stop filing. Okay. If you are doing any sort of part-time work, you can work part-time and potentially still collect unemployment, depending on how much you're making. But the key is you must report those earnings to unemployment. You need to report earnings in the week you earned them, right? Wages in the week you earned them. So like I was just describing, it's not about when you're paid, it's about when you earned the money, right? And so you need to also remember an important distinction, which is that you are reporting your gross wages, right? That's your before tax. So if you have an hourly rate, you would multiply that by the number of hours that you worked, right? And that would be your gross earnings for the week. You need to report regardless of whether it's a Pennsylvania employer, a Delaware employer, New Jersey employer, any employer, right? You have to report those earnings. Unemployment will get quarterly reports of earnings from employers, and they will cross-match that later on. So it won't happen in real time, but later on they could come back and say, hey, these wages were reported for you and you didn't report any wages, or these wages were reported for you and you reported something different, and you'll have to explain. So again, as accurate as you can be, knowing that not everyone has that accurate information, right? You might not know exactly how much you're going to make in a week. So, all you can do is, enter the information to the best of your ability. And if at some point later you realize it was wrong, you can always contact unemployment and let them know that you got better information and you need to update the weekly earnings that you reported. So how does part-time work affect your benefits? You have something called a partial benefit credit. That number is on your financial determination. It is 30% of your weekly benefit rate. Anything you make under that, so if you make less than your partial benefit credit, then there is no offset against your weekly benefit rate. You get the full amount of benefits. Once you go over that partial benefit credit, then there is a dollar per dollar offset. Okay. So you can make up to your weekly benefit rate plus your partial benefit credit. So you'll see there's a chart here. So if your weekly benefit rate is 200, your partial benefit credit is $60. You can make up to $260 and still get some amount of benefits. Once you make $261, that's it, right? At that point, you would not be eligible for any benefits that week. If you are earning wages that are inconsistent, right? It might be that some weeks you're eligible and some weeks you're not, right? So it's always good to take a look and see what those numbers would be. If your wages fluctuate like that, there's a chance that when you're filing for your weekly claims, at some point you may have to do what's called an additional claim. If unemployment sometimes gets confused when you're reporting wages and then maybe one week you report a lot less or something like that, and they think, oh, maybe you lost a job. But for most people in that situation, it's just that the job is part-time and it fluctuates in hours. And so just make sure when they ask you to file that additional information that you know what's happening. Okay. So we had some questions about folks who might be interested in doing some gig work on the side to kind of help hold themselves over. One thing, though, is Pennsylvania is very strict about this disqualification we have in our law called the self-employment disqualification. So anytime you report any non-W-2 income, the agency will investigate and ask some questions. It doesn't mean you're going to be disqualified, but they're always going to investigate. In order for the government to find that you're self-employed, they would really need to find that you are free from control and direction and that you are customarily engaged in your own business, right? So a couple of one-offs is not customarily engaged in your own business. If you're on a contract doing the same type of work that you were, let's say, doing at Crozer, but now all of a sudden someone wants to pay you as a 1099, right? You're probably being misclassified and you probably and so you can explain again that, let's say, you're not free from control and direction, right? If you're in the medical field, generally speaking, you're not going to be free from control and direction when you're working for an employer. Doing any sort of kind of gig work through an app, like giving rides, delivering food, right? Your kind of Uber Eats, DoorDash, Instacart. That is not typically considered self-employment in Pennsylvania. There's a Supreme Court case here that governs this. But again, once you report income that's not W-2, there will be an investigation. So you just make sure, again, that it's very clear that you're, only working temporarily for, with this app. It's just to hold you over. You are still looking for W-2 employment and all of those things, right? Because generally when you're working for a gig company, they tell you you're free from control and direction, but you're really not. And for most folks, that they are not customarily engaged in their own business, right? This is not your business. You are doing this just for this app, and you can clarify all of that. So just be aware that doing this work will cause unemployment to investigate. If they get it right, you should not be disqualified. If for some reason they get it wrong and you are disqualified, go to LASP. This is a thing that LASP can definitely help you with appealing and fixing that issue with unemployment. We also heard that there had been some questions about how other income might affect your unemployment. There were some questions about pensions. The key with both pensions and severance, although my understanding is people were not getting severance pay in the situation, unfortunately, is you report it upfront unemployment on your initial application. You do not report any money you receive from pension or retirement funds on your weekly claims, right? It's not only on weekly claims, you only report what's called earned income, right? From kind of active work. If you did not report something on your initial claim, you can follow up with an email to unemployment to give them that information. It's very likely that any sort of pension you have might not cause an offset against your benefits, right? So don't assume that there's definitely going to be an offset, but let unemployment know, let them figure it out. It's always better to let them know, right? Than to not let them know and have to have it investigated later when you're not paying attention to what's happening with your unemployment claim and maybe you wouldn't respond to them and they would have to issue a decision without you, right? So always better to deal with it in the moment with unemployment. Social Security, Retirement doesn't affect anything. You don't report that to unemployment. If you have any Social Security insurance or any Social Security disability insurance, whether it's for you or a family member, again, that does not affect unemployment. And you do not need to report your receipt of unemployment. You do not need to report your receipt of Social Security to unemployment. I will note that for Social Security insurance, SSI, I believe you do have to report receipt of unemployment to that. But my guess is that no one here who's just lost work from Crozer is on Social Security insurance, which is the disability program, right, for the Social Security Administration. If what you all normally think of as Social Security is probably Social Security retirement, which again does not affect anything, and you do not have to report. So key takeaway, you do not need to report any of this to unemployment. It will not affect your benefits. And similarly, any sort of spousal income or any other household income is not something that you have to report to unemployment, nor does it affect your benefits. We mentioned this last time, but workers who are legally authorized to work in the United States are eligible for benefits. At this point in the process, if you've applied and you are not a US citizen, just make sure that you have provided a copy of your work authorization documents to unemployment if they've asked. You can email them to uchealth@pa.gov, or you can upload them to the online portal, but make sure if they've requested that you provide those documents to them. Lee, you want to take it from here?
Sure. So what the help from LASP really is involved in is the when an initial claim is denied at the UC service center level, and that's really I think where most people are still is in the service center level. You can make an appeal, as it says, by portal or by fax or by email or by phone. The notice of your disqualifying determination tells you many options for making an appeal, and also says the reason for the disqualifying determination, whether it's because of a wage and earning, an wage and hour issue, or some mix up with the reason for your termination. In this case, in the case of Crozer, that should not be the case. When a claimant is denied, we say yes, absolutely continue to making the weekly claims, even if you are denied, because you're eligible for back pay if that denial is reversed at the appeals levels, and you'll get paid back for the weeks that have been disqualified. A notice of disqualification comes with a timeline to make an appeal. It says you have 21 calendar days from the notice of the appeal. But even if you miss that deadline, we say make your appeal, because there's lots of reasons that you may overcome that that deadline for technical reasons, personal reasons, whatever. Still valid and valuable to make the appeal, get into the system, and get heard by the next level above the service center, which would be a referee. Let me go to the next slide. It's just that late appeals, even if the deadline is passed, keep any evidence. Like I said, you'll have to explain to a referee why the appeal was late, and then it becomes the referee's judgment call. But that opportunity, it gives you quite a bit of latitude and reason to make your case. And you can go to the next slide. So the process, once an applicant makes an appeal, it goes immediately to the service center. Those service centers are all over the state. It doesn't matter geographically where the appeal happens. Where the determination happens, it'll get sent back by your portal or by mail, what the service center determines in terms of eligibility. The employer, if an appeal is if an application is disqualified, then you'll get the reason, and here in this case our claimants will make an appeal. The first level of appeal is the referee hearing. That is geographically determined based on where your employer worked. So most, I think, of the appeals hearings for Crozer will be in Delaware County at the Springfield referee office. That's the next level. You'll get a referee hearing. During COVID, that was a very long timeline. Those timelines are getting closer and closer, or getting shorter now. So from the time that you make your appeal, 2 to 3 months, I think, is where they're trying to hit for the referee hearing. As we said, during that dead time, you won't be getting paid a benefit, but you should still make an application because that's where the back pay comes in. The referee hearing has go back. Okay, sorry, go back to that. You're gonna go to the next slide. The referee hearing. Okay. The referee hearing, it's an administrative law decision. The referees are kind of like the judges. You don't have to have legal representation, but legal representation helps in that just to make points about the law. The referee asks a lot of questions of the employer and the employee, and it makes their determination. So, as it said, the referee hearing notice is very important. Most hearings are in person these days. You bring your documents with you and any evidence that you want to bring to the referee hearing. And like I said, it's like a legal proceeding with rules of evidence. So that's where a lawyer can help. But it doesn't. You don't have to have a lawyer present. But you can make your own case. Documents help. Anything that a claimant needs to build their case, to address directly head on what is the reason that they've been denied, whether it's showing that they actually did work their number of hours in the calendar year, or they were not terminated for cause, or whatever the reason. You want to address that disqualifying determination head on with your documentation and your testimony. And I said 30 minutes ahead of time to review your case file is what you're instructed to do in your hearing notice. You can go to the next slide. Telephone hearings, slightly different. You don't bring your documents with you directly to your telephone hearing. That would be too late for the other side to review them, too late for the referee to review them. So there is a cap, 5 days, no less than 5 days before your hearing. You have to turn any documents or supporting evidence for your claim has to go to the referee's office. Email is the way to do that, but or upload to the portal is also perfectly valid. Next slide. This is the address for the online portal, and I'll turn it over to Julia for the rest.
So as we discussed last time, the best way to access information about unemployment is to sign up for access to the online portal at benefits.uc.pa.gov. You will have to do identity authentication through ID.me in order to use that portal, but you're able to do a variety of different things within that portal. For instance, you can file your weekly certifications like we discussed. You can upload documents. So if there's documents related to any of the issues we've talked about today, you can upload them in the portal so that unemployment has access to them. When unemployment is going to do an investigation of any type, they will send questionnaires on the portal. That is where you answer them. If you do not have a portal, you will probably get an annoying letter in the mail that tells you that a questionnaire is available on your portal. If you get something mailed to you like that and you're not using a portal, call unemployment and tell them you'd like to speak with someone to answer the questions. You can view notices, determinations, like I said, questionnaires, all in a message center that's online. You can check your claim status to see what's going on with your claim. And importantly, you can change your payment method. If originally you did not sign up for direct deposit, you can make that change at any time in the online portal. It's very important that you set the communication preference that's right for you in the portal. There are really only two options now. One is internal message with email notification. So anytime that unemployment sends you something to your message center, you will get an email notification. Make sure you check your spam in the off chance that something ends up there. And if you ever see something from unemployment in your spam folder, make sure that you mark it not as spam, so it won't go there going forward. The other option is postal mail. You can receive everything by postal mail. You'll still get messages in the message center. You'll still have access to everything online, but you'll also get things mailed to you. So I know for a lot of folks, they still prefer having access to things in paper form. For both of these methods, it's important to make sure that you update your contact information if it changes. So if you move, make sure you change your mailing address. If you change email addresses or don't lose access to an email address, make sure you update that in the system. Unemployment can contact you about your claim pretty much right now at any point, even after the claim is ended, even after you've been paid, if something comes up that they have questions about. So it's really important that you update, at least for the next year or so, your contact information in the system so that if they do need to reach you about something, they can. So we put this website up last time and it's been in a bunch of the materials, but strongly suggest you visit uchealth.org. This is an assistance site run by Philadelphia Legal Assistance for folks all over the state with lots of information, including pretty much everything we've talked about today, and lots of frequently asked questions and screenshots of different aspects of the unemployment system, everything you can kind of need to help you navigate the system. So we recommend using that as a resource in your back pocket. And then if you need individualized help, right, if you're continuing to have issues with anything having to do with unemployment, we recommend contacting unemployment first and foremost. Again, they have a statewide hotline. You can get through on the phone these days. Best time to get through is Wednesday through Friday. They're pretty responsive to the email address, and you can talk to a real live person using the UC chat. If you are locked out of your account or having any sort of account issues, UC chat is one of the best ways to deal with that. If you want to speak with someone in person about some sort of issue that you're having with your claim, you can call for an appointment at your local career link. They will help you on that phone number, 855-284-8545. Schedule an appointment to meet with a UC staffer at a career link. So UC staffers are at career links a couple of days a week, but in order to meet with them, you have to schedule an appointment through that telephone line. If you have any issue with your work registration or your work search, then you want to visit, again, a career link office and they can work on that with you. If you get denied or you're having some sort of issue with troubleshooting your unemployment claim, we recommend that you can contact your local legal aid provider. For many of you, that will be Legal Aid of Southeastern Pennsylvania, but there's a link there that helps you find the relevant legal aid organization, depending on where you live. And the other folks who can help you are your state senators and state representatives. They have legislative contacts at the Department of Labor and Industry and can get information about what's happening with your claim and help you kind of navigate and work out any issues. So they are a great resource for any unemployment problems you might be having. Here is the intake information for LASP. If you are having an issue with an unemployment denial and you need help, you should contact LASP. And again, there's the information for uchealth.org. I'm going to leave this up on the screen and I'll take a look and see if we have any outstanding questions that I can take a look at.
So I have been diligently trying to type responses to questions, but there are 3 that I haven't yet gotten to that just came in the last few minutes. I will flag there was also one question I just want to say out loud so everyone can hear the answer. So if someone is still sort of stuck in waiting for their claim to be approved, the question is whether they should file a new claim. And the answer there is no, right. But that's so important. I just wanted to make sure everyone heard that because I know at least 2 of the next questions are also from people who are sort of waiting for a final resolution. So thank you.
If you filed more than 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, and you're still waiting for benefits, and there's probably an issue on your claim. If you have an online portal and you look on your claim summary, you will see if there are any issues flagged. If you have questions about what's happening, if unemployment hasn't followed up with you about those flags, contact unemployment, right, to see if there's anything you can do to help it move. But that just means that they are investigating something, right? Something was flagged on your claim based on how you answered something, and they have to look into it more.
And if you're having a hard time getting through to unemployment compensation, because I know that was an issue for some folks, obviously we're here to help, but also Julie, if you want to put it back to a few slides with the phone number so people can schedule that in-person appointment, that might be helpful for some folks as well.
Also, I wanted to add that the Unemployment Rapid Response Team that came from the Bureau of Labor and Industry is still operating in Chester for questions about the sort of the initial phase of the claim, helping you drive some of these questions through. And that's at the Chester Police Department on the first floor. They're sharing the building there, 160 East 7th Street, and it's open during the normal work hours, Monday to Friday, 8:30 to 5:30. So for some sort of questions about where in the processing is my initial claim, that might be a good stop to make. There's some really good questions on there about the one I see about a fraud investigation. That's actually quite a tricky one. That might have to deal with when the fraud was discovered almost more than anything else, and the reporting about that. So that'll be a difficult, I think, thread to unpack.
So I'll get back to that in 1 second. I did see a question about jobs. Erica gave a nice answer to someone who had a question about doing weekly work search when you're seeing a lot of jobs that are not really suitable for you. You don't have to apply to every job you see, right? Again, they're only requiring the 2 job applications or a work search activity. And sometimes I think if you look at unemployment's website, I think sometimes job application can also be like a follow-up, right, to an employer who you have submitted an application to, right? It could be that maybe you're interviewing for a job. So it's not necessarily just submitting an initial application. It could be something in that process. So take a close look if you're feeling like there's a lot of pressure to apply for jobs that you don't feel are suitable for you. On the fraud issue, there was a lot of identity fraud during the pandemic. There were a lot of claims filed under people's names, and a lot of folks didn't ever find out about that. And that's in part because it means that hopefully there wasn't any other effect on you, right? You didn't have any issues with the IRS or anything like that. But it might be that that fraudulent claim that was filed under your name is still associated with your Social Security number. If that is the case, if you're being told that you can't create an account because there's already an account in your name, you need to contact unemployment and let them know that and say that you need them to address the fraudulent claim filed in your name. If you're not getting any traction with that, that's definitely something to go to your state legislator about, and they can coordinate that. There's a whole process unemployment has to go through on the back end where they take the fraud claim and they move it to like a fake Social Security number, right? So that it's no longer attached to you, right? But there is a little bit of a process. So they have to do that, and they've done that for lots of people successfully, and they've cleared along a lot of the backlog related to those. But it just might be that yours didn't get handled for some reason. So if you're still having any sort of issues like that, just make sure, contact your state legislator. That could also be something that you could contact that appointment line and make an appointment to meet with an unemployment agent at a career link office, right? If you want to talk to someone one-on-one from unemployment about what's happening. If you were unable to file your initial claim because of that, for if anyone has that issue, once you file your initial claim, you should make sure that you ask them to backdate it to when you lost work, because it's not your fault, right, that you were delayed in being able to get that application in. They should backdate it and make sure that you can get benefits going back to when you lost work. Okay. So unfortunately, we can't tell folks. There's a question about if your case is with an examiner, how long could that take? They are moving pretty quickly these days. It's not helpful to send too many communications to them if you're still waiting. Please never harass these workers. They're doing the best they can under difficult circumstances as well. But make sure that you have responded to everything they've asked. Most likely, and this could be an issue for some folks on this in this meeting, they might be waiting for a response from your employer. And given the current situation at Crozer, I'm guessing they might be having some issues getting responses, right? If that is the case, then they have to wait a certain period of time. Sometimes it's 7 days, sometimes it's 10, sometimes it's 14 to give the employer a chance to respond. If they don't respond, then they'll just move forward, right? Based on your information. But my guess is if some of you are having any sort of issues that might also involve your former employer, again, I don't know who's kind of working on the back end there in HR, how any of that is happening. So that could possibly be why it's taking longer for them to kind of get through and clear the issue on your claim.
But do look at your portal for questionnaires from the unemployment center, because that's what they do communicate with you that way.
Yes. Someone wrote that they received PTO. Do they have to report that on their weekly certification? If they're paying you PTO now and after you've been fully separated from Crozer, you do not need to report that to unemployment. You do not need to report PTO after you stop working. If you are working, right, and let's say working part-time and you take PTO from that job and you're still employed by them, then yes, you would report PTO during that week. But PTO paid out to you after the end of a job, you do not need to report. So there was a question about having filed 2.5 weeks ago. It's normal to still be under review at that point. Usually takes around 3 weeks, sometimes 4 weeks for claims to get paid. If you see, again, any sort of claim issue listed on your portal, you will look and see in your message center if there's any issues related to that. If it's been 4 weeks and you still haven't been paid, and let's say you don't have a portal, it's just you're just filing by phone, we do recommend going to see a state legislator, going to the special outpost in Delaware County that Lee mentioned, or contacting unemployment just to see what's going on. They're usually, again, pretty responsive to questions like this. And my guess is that anyone who gets kind of caught up right now might be because of something that they're waiting for Crozer to respond to. Okay, it looks like we have answered the questions we had. We'll give folks a couple of minutes to throw anything else in the Q&A. And if we don't see anything in a couple of minutes, we'll close up. But important to remember, again, keep an eye on your message center. Make sure that you're filing your weekly certifications. Also, if you haven't received a debit card in the mail yet from unemployment, keep your eye out. It's coming in an unmarked white envelope, right? The same way you always get any sort of credit card that it's just like the perfect storm to miss it. This is a Money Network card. That is what you are looking for. If you filed an application more than 3 weeks ago and you're expecting a debit card and haven't gotten it, look up the Money Network number on the UC website and call them and check to make sure that the card has not gone to the wrong address or that it didn't somehow get intercepted or there's no issues, and you can always have them cancel it and send you another one. Okay, I am not seeing any more questions, so we will go ahead and close up. Thank you all for joining us. Lee, Erica, anything you want to add?
I'll just say that just like with the last one, we've recorded this. We will post it on YouTube and we will share a link with everyone who registered. So it'll be there if you need to refer back to it going forward. Also, I want to say thank you so much to Julia and to Lee and to the Pennsylvania Legal Aid Network and everybody who helped facilitate putting this together, volunteering your time to work after hours. I really appreciate you. Thank you, thank you, thank you.